Some towns have such strange inhabitants that you'd honestly rather just be haunted by ghosts than interact with the living residents. America is full of weird and creepy towns which lurk in every state and carry their own tales of a twisted past. If you've ever been curious as to how strange these places can get, then you've come to the right place. Get ready to be creeped out as we explore the top 10 creepiest towns in America. Number 1. Bodie, California. Bodie, California is the most well-known ghost town in the state, which has eerily been trapped in time. Gold rushers flooded the barren town to try and find more of the precious metal. Led by William Bodie, the Standard Company discovered a profitable deposit of gold-bearing ore in 1859, which transformed Bodie from an isolated camp comprising of a handful of prospectors and company employees to a Wild West boomtown. By 1879, the town had a population of 5,000 to 7,000. Sadly, Bodie died in a blizzard the following November, meaning he never saw the rise of the town named after him. With every great rise must come a crashing fall. With the Bodie Railway abandoned in 1917, the last mine closed in 1942 after the government ordered the closure of all non-essential gold mines in the United States. Mining never resumed, and the town quickly gained a reputation of being a forgotten and creepy town. Shacks still stand with tables set, waiting for their long-gone residents to return. Shops and restaurants still have stocked up shelves and supplies, prepared to serve customers who will never return through the building's doors. A creepy aura of emptiness hangs over the town like a fog to this very day. Number 2. Brodhead, Wisconsin. Brodhead, Wisconsin isn't the type of place you would recommend to your mom staying in or even driving through. There are numerous accounts of haunted ghosts creeping through the town, with the soul of a woman who was brutally murdered by two men on the town's bridge still hanging around. The list goes on, including a girl being tragically caught on fire and burned alive inside the town's borders, but the most startling account of paranormal activity takes place at Hell's Playground. At this playground, children were allegedly murdered by a mentally ill man, with reports of creepy laughs and giggles of the deceased still being heard on the playground swings and merry-go-round. With rampant meth addiction, poverty, and decaying architecture, Brodhead just isn't a nice place. Number 3. Bannack, Montana. Paranormal activity lurks on every abandoned corner in Bannack, Montana. Founded in 1862, when John White discovered gold on Grasshopper Creek, Bannack was a typical gold rush town in the Wild West. Everything was going great until the discovery of gold in the nearby Virginia city. Loyalty to the town was proven to be missing as many prospectors swiftly moved towards the fresh scent of gold. This caused the road between the two towns to become soaked in blood due to the many holdups, robberies, and murders that took place on this stretch, making it one of the most violent stagecoach routes in the country. The leader of the outlaw gang behind the bloodshed turned out to be Bannack's very own sheriff. Crazy! The mining town proved its longevity, however, as it lasted a lot longer than most, with its population sticking around until the 1930s and 50s. The ghosts of these murders still lurk the town, gaining it a reputation big enough to feature in an episode of the Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures. Number 4. Whittier, Alaska. Imagine one building containing everything a town needs to live. That includes a grocery store, a post office, apartments, absolutely everything in one building. That's the reality for the 200-strong people of the town of Whittier in Alaska. To enter the town, you must either go through a single tunnel or arrive by boat through its ports. With serious creepy vibes from the crumbling old community building, being a member of this community is a tight squeeze. Having everything under one roof for almost 200 people reminds me of a hospital or mental asylum. Not getting on with your neighbors must be a real pain. If this wasn't creepy enough, the town experiences 18 hours a day of darkness in winter months, adding to the claustrophobia. Number 5. Villisca, Iowa. Villisca, Iowa is a town with a murderous past. Over 100 years ago, axe murders took place on the evening of June 10th and morning of June 11th, 1912. When officials searched the house occupied by the Moore family, 8 dead bodies were discovered. They were all brutally bludgeoned. Even the children were beaten over the head. A truly gory spectacle and a tragic tale. While 7 suspects were brought forward, the murders remain unsolved to this day. This lack of clarity of who was behind this brutality resulted in an uneasiness and lack of safety, which attached itself to the very core of the town's image. The town is now run down and abandoned, although there is the creepy option to stay in the Moore's house and walk through the halls and rooms where the tragic murders took place. I can't imagine you'd get much sleep staying there, to be honest. Number 6. Colorado City, Arizona. Colorado City is an absurd place, with creepy vibes apparent on every level of the town's existence. The town was taken over by a fundamentalist Mormon cult gone rogue, whose leader branded all those outside the town as satanic and all technology as evil. Pretty standard stances for a radical cult. However, the inhabitants behave as if they are living in the 1800s, whether that be in the clothing they wear, the insistence to marry within the cult, or the volatile hatred they express to anyone who dares pass through. You won't find any Hollister tops or warm embracing hugs here. The leader was arrested on claims of child molestation, but the cult, which forces young girls into polyamorous relationships with older men, still exists to this day. They remain distant and mysterious, preferring to keep it that way for the foreseeable future. Number 7. Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The town of Point Pleasant has a creepy past of war, which led it to be cursed for 200 years. Tuende Way State Park in Point Pleasant commemorates the Battle of Point Pleasant, fought between the settlers of what was then Virginia and the Shawnee tribe in 1774. 75 settlers were killed and an undetermined number of Shawnees who lost the battle. A modern replica of the fort stands a mile away from the original fort site. The fort is best known as the site of the murder of the Shawnee chief Cornstalk, who had come to the settlement to act as a diplomat and was captured and executed along with his sons and close friends. With his last few breaths on earth, Cornstalk called on the gods to plague the land with a curse for 200 years. It could be easy to overlook and dismiss this vow of vengeance in the form of a curse as nothing more than just mere words of a dying imprisoned leader. But time would give it some validity. Since the curse, there have been 2 devastating floods which have ruined the town, followed by a vicious fire. In 1970, a football team from Marshall University were on a plane which crashed and resulted in all 75 of its players and coaching staff on board the plane to die. Fear of the curse soon grew. Following the Silver Bridge which connected the town to Ohio collapsing in 1967, a freight train derailing and spilling toxic chemicals into the water supply in 1978, the town seemed to be experiencing an overwhelming trend of bad luck. Maybe the curse is real after all. Number 8. Antelope, Oregon. Whilst there are many creepy towns in Oregon, Antelope is really up there with the creepiest. If you were to enter the town, you would be greeted by deer sitting on the inhabitants' porches. This is only the tip of the iceberg of weird traits the town has. With no technology or communication with the outside world, the town lives on in its bubble. In 1891, an Indian guru called Rajneesh bought up 65,000 acres of the land 18 miles outside of the town. No one could have known what would happen next. Members of the guru's religious community, Rajneeshpuram, would later infiltrate the towns with its cultish deer-owning ways, even going as far as changing the name of the town to the Gurus. Things took a turn for the dark when the cult began poisoning the restaurant, salad bars, and water supplies in nearby towns. The cult even tried to murder several local officials, causing a manhunt to erupt. After the cult was driven out of the town, the residents soon followed. To this day, only 49 people are left in the town, determined to stick to their unique way of living. I'm going to assume they probably don't take too kindly to outsiders. Number 9. Skidmore, Missouri. Skidmore, Missouri's past is mainly tainted by the acts of one of its residents, Ken McElroy. McElroy, or town bully, was a plague on Skidmore for numerous years until he finally faced justice at the end of a barrel. Accused of dozens of felonies, including assault, child molestation, statutory rape, arson, hog and cattle rustling, and burglary. The list is long. On the 10th of July 1981, the town had enough. In front of everyone, McElroy was shot dead by one of the townsfolk. After numerous investigations, no one was convinced because everyone in Skidmore refused to grasp on the executioner. Eventually, officials gave up on the case. Skidmore's creepy past doesn't end here. In the year 2000, a woman was viciously stomped to death by her violent boyfriend. In the year 2004, a pregnant woman was described by a local to have had her belly exploded. In an act of savagery, the pregnant woman had her baby cut out of the womb by someone who was in desperate need of a child of their own. While Skidmore is a relatively small town, the amount of incidents which stain its path is immense. Number 10. Centralia, Pennsylvania. Imagine a town where smoke creeps up through the cracks in the road as if the gates of hell are awaiting just below the tarmac. That town is a reality in the form of Centralia, Pennsylvania. Once a quaint coal mining town, Centralia used to be home to more than 2,000 residents. But now, the town's population has dwindled to less than 10. In 1962, a trash fire in an underground coal mine started, and it's still roaring to this day. With a nearly limitless supply of coal, the fire doesn't look to be slowing down, growing 75 feet in every direction every year. Roads have been barricaded to ward off people from crossing them in cars or on foot, with a real threat of them collapsing with gruesome consequences. Sinkholes litter the town, and the carbon monoxide fume which rise are also deadly to anyone.